Yeah, that feels kind of weird. I don't feel like being that vulnerable.
That's the cold open. I don't feel like being that vulnerable.
Yeah. Welcome back to In Residence. I'm Keith.
And I'm Laura.
Hey, Laura.
Hi, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. You?
Doing good. What have we been up to?
This week, we had family day at the dentist. All of us went to the dentist.
Yay! I was so not looking forward to that.
It was good, though.
It was, but I have dental anxiety, just like most people, I think. But it was great. Everyone was really nice.
I was the only one that walked away with needing a filling.
I can't believe I didn't have a cavity.
Yeah.
But they're gonna replace some of my fillings, though. So it's not like I got out of it, you know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, that was our adventure.
That was our adventure for the...
And we got everybody in, and we all got out. That was good.
Check off the list.
Yeah. What else? I feel like there's something else.
So I'm really excited. This week, I joined Purple Space.
Yeah, cool.
I'm so excited. You have been in a part of the community for quite a while now.
Since the end of June last year, yeah. That's when it started.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I feel like it's been longer. Why do I think that?
I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but I can't quite remember the before times. So it's like a little bit of both for me. Because I think it was when we got back from Road America. That weekend we were gone is when I saw the email.
That's right.
And I was like, whoa, what's this? I'm like, oh no, I need signal. I need to sign up for this.
Oh my goodness. So it has, and maybe it seems like it has been longer because since you've joined.
Because it's all I talk about.
No. Because since you joined, and this is not a slight on you at all, but there's been such a large, you're like, what are you going to say?
Mm-hmm.
So much movement on shipping the podcast.
Right.
That it's hard to believe that you joined in June and began shipping a couple months later. Because we had been recording for close to a year now, not quite.
We started recording in April. We didn't record every week from April of last year, but that's when we started our first several, and then we didn't ship until September. So it was a couple months there, like July, August was right after I joined, gave me the nudge I needed to get my butt in gear and make this thing that we'd been working on happen. And that's why I've been kind of hinting to you, like, maybe you would like this community. And then at the same time, I'm like, but maybe it's not for you, because then everyone will see that you're the cool one.
I don't know about that. I will say I'm very anxious right now because I'm super excited. But when it comes to posting things, I'm incredibly anxious.
Yeah, that's something that you've wanted to work on, right?
It is. So I think this will be a good space and community to do that in. And I know that doesn't mean the anxiety is any less real right now for me.
Yeah.
It was kind of like I'm so excited. Oh, what did you do?
Now I have to be seen, and I need to show up, and I need to post and be part of this. And it's going to be okay, Laura.
Okay.
It's going to work out. By the time this comes out, you're going to have probably had 10 or 20 posts and all these. It's just commenting back and forth with people and helping support others. And then they help support you and talking about what you're working on. And all those things that we talk about, like little steps here and there, right? So it's going to be really fun to see how far you are when this releases from right now as we're talking. I'm excited.
Yeah.
You're nervous, but I'm excited.
I'm nervous. Part of it is I'm an overthinker, and I was actually having a good conversation with Child 2 based on a Harvard Business Review article this past week.
Okay.
It sounds silly.
A 13-year-old is talking about Harvard Business Review with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I saw an article. It was all about how to get through overwhelm and what forms overwhelm takes or anxiety can take. And one of them was the overthinking.
Yeah. And well, that was like one of our first episodes too. Mm-hmm. Like the second one, we were talking about overwhelm. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Which is funny. How do we even get anything done? I think it manifests itself in different ways in each of us. I'm more concerned about this over here, and you'll maybe focus on that over there. And so things get done, since we're a team. But
Yeah.
it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I forget you're an overthinker because I'm
Oh,
so busy doing my own version of it.
I definitely am. And so he and I were comparing about how it shows up for us. And when we procrastinate and when we overthink and when we get on that playing something over and over and over again to try and figure out how's it going to work, that loop.
Yeah.
So anyway, I know I'm overthinking things.
Mm-hmm.
I often say that's one of my superpowers.
Being thoughtful is a superpower, but overthinking is kind of like the weakness of that, right?
Yeah.
If you get stuck in the loop.
That's true. I could see how it might not be a superpower in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that was another thing that was an exciting thing of my week is joining Purple Space.
Yeah.
How about you? Anything going on for you this week?
I'm excited that you're joining Purple. It'll be fun to see your progress, just like you were talking about how you saw mine. Looking forward to that. So let's move on to what are we going to talk about? I think it's a little connected.
It is. So typically something in the week comes up, and what I wanted to talk about today was about being brave. What does that look like? And really dig deep into that topic. I was listening to the book Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown. And so obviously that's a really strong theme through that. But then thinking about our family day at the dentist, it took some bravery to go to a brand new dentist after it's been a little while.
You're talking about me, by the way, everybody. I mean, she's not talking about the kids. She's talking about me.
That's true. Actually, child one on the way to the dentist said to me, he's like, I don't know what the big deal is. I mean, if you have a cavity, you just get a filling. I'm like, all right. But sometimes that bravery for the dentist. Then I will say also the bravery, I think it's going to take me to really lean into Purple Space. Because like I said, I have some anxiety around posting. And although I'm super excited, really to be seen and be vulnerable, I think that's something I've been really thinking about the last couple of days. How do I do that and show up genuinely for that space and that community, even when I'm scared?
Yeah. Let's dig into it a little bit more here.
So one question I wanted to ask you, what does being brave mean? And I'll set it up this way. Oftentimes, when I was growing up, I would think being brave means trying to not have fear. One thing that I hated doing when I was little was turning off the light and going up the stairs from the dark basement.
I think that's a kid thing.
Is it?
I had it too.
And I was terrified, right, to turn that light off, and I would sprint up the stairs as fast as I possibly could. So in that case, I was operating on fear, but I don't know if I would call that bravery. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep, I get you.
I feel like bravery is something bigger than that. And so I just wanted to see what your thoughts are on that.
I totally understand that. And I think that's how we think of it as a kid, right? Of something scary, but we're going to be brave and act out of getting away from something that's scary. I'm of the mind now that brave is something is scary and you lean into it anyway. As long as it's not a safety issue, right? So being seen by posting something, right? That's scary. If I want to move from where I am and not stay stuck where I am, kind of like what we talked about last time, being around the people I've been around for the last several months has really helped me instill the idea of when it feels tough, when it feels scary, that is the time to lean in. The more you do it, the easier it gets, because I think you start to notice and you start to reflect upon how you're feeling. You notice that feeling of hesitation or resistance or pulling back. I know when I'm feeling that type of fear of not doing it because it's scary, that's a signal to figure out how to push through that. And with grace with myself and to find a way to move through that. That's brave to me.
So you're kind of saying bravery is kind of having the fear of doing something that's going to maybe make you be seen or vulnerable.
Yeah, being seen feels vulnerable to me. And so, I didn't quite say it. Maybe I didn't explain that well, but
no, I'm just
putting out the podcast
Yeah.
We're being heard. So that's a little vulnerable. Or we've been thinking about how can we maybe release some videos, right? That's scary.
Sorry, you heard my nervous laugh.
Yeah, it's scary to me too. But there's a reason I'm thinking of it, because I know it's a way for me to make more of an impact, more of a connection through people being able to actually see me, or for me to be able to use another medium like, images to help convey the messages or the words that I want to say. So to push through that fear, be brave and show up, and the phrase, here, I made this, leaning into that and the generosity of it versus the fear of what if it's not received well. It's like, well, then you make another one, right? Put another pearl on the string.
Right. One thing I'm thinking about as you're talking is a lot of that does require us to be more open with sharing of ourselves and who we truly are. And Shel Silverstein, poet, author.
Yeah, I think most people know who Shel Silverstein is. Yeah.
Good. But he had a poem called Masks. That's kind of the masks we wear. And the whole concept is that these two individuals have these masks on and they're looking for something all along. And they both are that thing all along. And if only they would have taken off their mask, they would have known that it was there with them. And so part of me, as you're talking through being seen, some of that is taking off the masks that we wear.
Yeah, I see that. So hearing that, it also makes me think that the changes I've made, or like the way that you've seen me shift into shipping work, part of that was because I had a safe space to take little leaps, sharing a little bit here and realizing that it's going to be okay if I share something. It's not going to be a failure. It's not going to be this thing in my head that, well, it's probably not that good anyway, right? These self-doubt. So having a safe space to be vulnerable in allows you to show up as yourself more. And I think that's really important, because if you don't feel safe, of course you're going to be afraid. So you got to shift so that you aren't operating out of fear, right? Like you said earlier. And part of that is, what's my environment? Who am I surrounding myself with? That's just kind of what comes to my mind. And the mask that you're talking about, for me, I'm not intentionally hiding or covering myself up, but I'm withholding. I'm not sharing of myself fully, right? That's right. What a mask means to me in this instance. I see that now. I've never really quite thought of it that way, but I do like that, because that's kind of what you do. You put a mask on to hide your true identity, right? Huh. Yeah.
And I think
I'm Batman.
You're Batman. Oh, I didn't know.
No.
I think that oftentimes, though, we wear masks for good reason, to protect ourselves from people that we maybe feel wouldn't understand us or judge us.
Yeah. So with that, I think I thought this earlier too, that brings up the idea of being okay with not being for everybody. Makes it okay for me to be seen by people that they might judge me, and I'm not going to seek them out so that they can judge me, but I'm not going to let the possible judgment from somebody stop me from moving forward. Or I'm trying, I'm working and making sure I don't do that. Or when I notice myself holding back because I'm fearing judgment, well, if they're going to judge me, they're not for me. And so then I don't need, I think we've talked about that before. It's like, they're not in the arena. That's a Brené Brown thing, right?
Sure. Yep.
If they're not in the arena with me, then I don't need to listen to them.
One thing that she talked about, that we really are always seeking belonging.
Oh, yeah.
And so even though we can say that we're not for them and to let them get out of our head, it's really hard for us, I think, because we're, as humans, always seeking that true belonging. And so we have this tendency to continue to check to make sure that we are enough for those around us. That was something that really resonated with me, because in a perfect world, I'd want to say that if who I am isn't enough for people, or how I'm showing up isn't enough for people, who cares?
Right.
It's fine. Oh, there's the F word again, right? It's fine.
Yeah.
I think I would be kidding myself a little bit if it still didn't hurt, primarily because of the belonging component.
Yeah.
because we're hardwired to want to belong to something, to a group. That was a really powerful theme in the book, wanting to belong. And at the same time, how do you belong when sometimes things you value and you believe are at odds with those you're trying to belong with? And so the book, it was saying that really being brave is having this need to belong, but also being courageous enough to stand alone in the things you believe.
I would rather stand alone while I'm seeking out the people that I'm going to be better aligned with than to, I think of it as maybe suffer with people that are making me not feel connected because we don't align. And I can say that, but I'm like, if I actually was going through that, that's probably really hard to not simply be okay with what you have. Like, oh, this isn't my ideal crew, but that's all I have. And I'd rather not be alone, kind of thing. Does that make any sense? Or
I think so, because
I'm trying to not be so like, well, I would just stand by myself and I'd be fine until I found the people that make me feel welcome. I'm trying to not be, I'm not 100% sure that that would go well for me, you know, even though I am a homebody and I can have a lot of downtime alone.
Yeah.
I need connection, but I think I have learned that I would rather be happy alone than miserable with some other people.
Yeah.
You know?
So bringing it back to the idea of being brave doesn't necessarily mean that there's an absence of fear, but being brave really is about having courage to be vulnerable. And I think within the context of wanting to belong and that pull to belonging.
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to unpack a little bit with you, do you think that you can have courage without vulnerability? Can you be courageous without being vulnerable?
So I'm pretty sure I've seen some people talk about this, and one of them was probably Brené Brown, and another probably Simon Sinek. Pretty sure they would say no, and I think I agreed with what I was hearing. I never really thought of that before, so obviously I enjoyed hearing that. Yeah, I don't know if you can really be courageous without being vulnerable, because it takes maybe a little selflessness in a way. Not quite sure how to talk about this without talking about Simon Sinek talking about military people and that they're courageous because they're vulnerable, because they know someone's got their back. I'll jump on a grenade for you because you would do it for me, kind of thing. I don't know if that's helpful.
Often when I think of vulnerability, when it's tied to being courageous,
yeah,
I also think when you're sticking up for someone else, speaking and fighting for other people or things, or when you're asking for help, there's a lot of different situations that you can find courage in, but it does have a layer of having you really put yourself out there as a whole person, your values and all of it.
Right. Thinking about the courageous and vulnerable, I take the way I think about that from hearing Brené Brown and Simon Sinek talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just taking some of this stuff in from listening to the book or reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, where are you at with that?
I think it's difficult to have courage without being vulnerable. It made me think back to a job I had that required a lot of courage. I had to speak up quite a bit in situations that I wasn't necessarily comfortable. I was, I think, the youngest female leader on an executive leadership team. I had a lot of imposter syndrome going on, but vulnerability to me was incredibly important. It's one of the values that I hold. I think it's something to really challenge myself and be my true self, to align my actions with my values, to be courageous enough to say the hard things. That is something I got a lot of practice doing in that job. So I do think it's important to be able to be vulnerable in those moments, even to stand up and say, hey, I messed up. I made a mistake. This is what it was. And I'm being courageous enough right now to say that.
Yeah, that brings up like the vulnerability of that, right? That brings up trust.
Yeah.
I can't be vulnerable if I don't trust somebody. Like I can't be vulnerable with somebody if I don't trust them. to me, that they go hand in hand. If you're in that room with people and you need to be courageous because that's what the situation calls for, if you don't trust people in there, that's really hard to do.
Yeah. I could see how that could be really hard because you don't know how they'll react or if they'll value your courageousness and see the vulnerability you're having in that moment.
Because like those moments, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to be courageous and speak up. It's like you just feel like, oh, I need to say something right now, and it's feeling difficult to say it. And then you look back and, oh, I was being pretty brave doing that because I wasn't sure how that was going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm trying to just remember that because I don't go around thinking like I'm going to be courageous and I'm gonna tell it like it is, you know.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I could give you an example of a time, and this is more a one-on-one conversation I had with a supervisor. I had done a 360 evaluation. For those that don't know what a 360 evaluation is your supervisor does an evaluation on you, your peers do the same survey instrument on you, and then those that report to you and those that work with you more at large. And then the results are compiled, either someone in HR or a coach will go through them with you to help you grow and develop on your leadership journey and get better, improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had taken this 360 evaluation and all of my results were favorable, fairly favorable. Obviously, you have things to work on, and that's important to admit and acknowledge and act upon.
Yeah.
But the metrics that my supervisor gave me were the complete opposite of what everyone else gave me. My peers, my direct reports, those in my, division, those at the college at large. I knew it was my supervisor because there's one supervisor.
Right.
And they were told that this is one supervisor, right?
Yeah.
He did this for 2 leaders at the institution. Many of us were doing it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So he did it for a couple of us. And he came into my office one night when I was working, trying to get through some stuff. And I remember him saying to me, so I heard that you think that I gave you low grades. I think I misread the directions. And it was a tense time.
I can hear the backpedaling.
Well, it was a tense time during that relationship. To be honest. And I remember him saying, I misread the directions and, whatever you think I gave you, obviously I didn't.
It's like,
and
is that
I
like
said,
the
well,
definition of gaslighting?
I don't know. And
okay.
Probably. I remember just saying, I said, well, thank you for letting me know. And he asked me if I thought that he trusted me. And I said, I don't know how to answer that.
Oh, nice answer.
I said, let me think about that, is what I said. Let me think about that. I'm not sure how to respond or answer that right now. And
you're amazing. That's an amazing response to that. Somebody putting you on the spot. That is an amazing response.
And you have a power differential relationship. Like, remember, this person could have fired me on the spot for no other reason than I looked in the wrong direction, right?
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
But I remember I sat there and I've made this commitment to myself. One of my values is that I'm always going to say the hard thing to my supervisor, and I'm going to find a way to do it in a very kind way. So it's that kind candor, radical candor.
Yep.
I can say hard things in ways that are clear, direct. And so that was my response to him in that moment. I remember at the time, he just kind of looked at me and eventually he said, okay. And he turned around and just left. I sat there and I went, oh, like I had a really deep,
oh, I bet.
Did that just happen? It was hard because you never want to think your supervisor doesn't trust you, especially when you're doing all the things possible to get the job done and do everything you can to help them be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I needed to say the thing that was the elephant in the room, to at least say it in a way that wasn't mean.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't definitive. Like, you don't trust me, because I didn't know. I still don't know to this day. What I do know is that I needed to open the door to have a courageous conversation with him about where we were at in a supervisor-supervisee relationship. That was one where it required me to be incredibly vulnerable, because it could have been just as easy to deny what it was I was thinking. Deny and say, no, of course I think you trust me.
Right.
Of course. Why would I think anything different?
Feels that's easier in the moment, right?
Yeah.
But then it plants a seed underneath. It's going to fall out beneath your feet, right?
Exactly. So when I was thinking about vulnerability and being courageous, I think do go hand in hand. The other concept, and I'm going to read this quote because I thought it was an interesting concept and I'd like your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Courage is forged in pain, but not in all pain. The idea that having courage is grounded in pain that you felt when you had to stand alone, be alone, when you didn't feel like you belonged.
Yeah.
But there are other things that have grown out of there that are beautiful from those experiences that also support your courage.
Yeah. It also makes me think that it comes from doing the hard thing, the getting those reps in of not choosing to say, oh, no, of course, we're okay. Everything's fine. That's the easy thing. But when you take maybe the harder path, it builds the muscle, right? I mean, I remember countless times throughout your career where we've talked and it's like, well, and I think we brought it up on here before too, but it's like, this is the situation. I probably need to do this, but I don't want to. I could do this. And like, we look at each other and we're like, if you feel like it's not the thing you want to do, it's probably the thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's you or me, right, in those situations, it's like, I don't want to do it because it's harder. But once you do it, you're like, okay, it's a good thing I did that. It was worth it. It was scary, but now that I've done it, it wasn't as scary as thinking about it, right? And I think it makes it easier to do the next one.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that
true.
I think doing those hard things over and over builds integrity.
Yeah.
The connection between integrity and intent and going about making decisions and talking to people with the intent of doing the right thing, saying the hard thing because it's the right thing, that's integrity. I think that shows leadership and you're there to get the work done because you said you would.
Right. Have you had any experiences like that where you've had to be vulnerable and kind of put yourself out there? So you've had to tap into that courage?
Yes. All right. Keith, story time. How do I start? Last week, I was talking with some friends. We try to get on the call once a week. And a ways into the call, the question came up, did either of us have an instance in which we said yes to something that we would have been better off saying no to?
Mm.
And I had a situation that is front of mind almost all the time. And I'm like, yep, I have a story about this. And I trust these two people. So I could be vulnerable with them. So there's kind of two parts of vulnerability here to my little story. So this instance, I started off and I'm like, okay, so after I tell you two, you'll be 2 of 3 people that know this, aside from my wife, aside from you.
Right. Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like embarrassment and shame with this situation where I said yes to a friend who was trying to help me. And I knew I should have said no, but I wanted to say yes. And so I did. The backstory is they wanted a mandolin and I wanted a tattoo. And they have that skill, very, very strong skills in that department. He was trying to support me in my recent development of skills in learning how to build instruments. And he's like, all right, well, you want a tattoo? I want a mandolin. Let's trade. You know, it's like, it's what you do when you're trying to help each other out. Right. Like,
right.
And I so wanted to be that. I wanted to be an instrument builder when this was happening. It was one of those times where what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it was still a little beyond my ability. But this was somebody supporting me and telling me that I could do it kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, I want to do it for you because you're so fun. And I would love to build you a mandolin, right? And so I'm telling this story to my friends and they're like, okay. And I go, that was 10 years ago. And I haven't made the mandolin for them yet, but I have been tattooed. And their jaws just are like, oh no, like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yep. I'm like, so there's a lot of shame and embarrassment. And there's all these things that I could say about the circumstances and all this, but that's not what's important. They instantly went through and they helped me work through that. And so, yeah, I was being vulnerable with them because I'm talking about something that's, I feel a lot of shame around that I let somebody down. And they've never made me feel that in the times I've talked with them about, I'm sorry, don't have it done, this and that, excuses basically, but like circumstances, right?
Right.
So anyway, so my friends helped me work through that and have like, I hesitate to say it, but like the courage or bravery to reach out to this person and to say, hey, I'm really sorry, but I want to clean up my mess. This wasn't my intention. I said I would, but I can't, it's like, I'm not where I thought I was going to be and what I was going to be doing. It didn't happen. It hasn't happened. And so I ended up having a really nice conversation via text. I felt like what did I say? I said, I think I just lost 20 pounds of shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
After, so I was greeted with a lot of kindness and grace from my friend. I didn't feel like I deserved that. And, they were very generous in understanding and accepting my apology,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was very vulnerable. I guess I feel so that was I was being really vulnerable and it was scary, and so far it worked out.
And you've done it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know you're hesitating to admit that it's courageous.
Yeah.
But I think that it took courage for you to do that.
Yeah. So I get that, but it's simply the right thing to do. And I think I've tiptoed around trying to do it a couple times, but always with a little bit of but no, this time, seriously, I will get it done because I still want to, but it's not going to happen. Like, I almost said possibly, but with saying that, it feels more possible than it ever has. And there is a part of me that's like, okay, how can I get over the feeling of failure of not being an instrument builder, not building guitars as like my career? So I think that's what it's tied up in.
Sure.
And so now getting through that and saying out loud to you and writing to myself, maybe that just means it's going to be a really fun hobby that I spend a lot of time doing. Like the way you garden, maybe I can build instruments. And that is a really good shift that feels possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not weighed down with embarrassment and shame and those things that really feed like self-doubt. Mm-hmm. Like there's more possibility in the way that I've maybe shifted my mindset around it. And so I feel really fortunate to have some really solid friends. In one way, they support me and also challenge me and accept me for who I am. So I'm a lucky guy.
You are. You are. You have good friends.
Yeah. So I appreciate them very much. They know who they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, that just happened recently. Been happening for years, but I finally confronted it.
Yeah. So it's making me think a little bit about this concept that having courage or being brave isn't necessarily just a trait you have. It's doing something.
Like it's an action, right?
It's more of an action.
I can get behind that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Is there anything you want to talk about more?
Not really. I mean, maybe we just give it a little space here and
maybe we can end by encouraging everyone that as you're going throughout your week and the weekend, that you take the chance to notice the opportunities you have to be courageous and be brave, and to really lean into those moments with vulnerability and grace for yourself. Show up the best way that you know how, because sometimes the hard things, as Keith said, in the middle of this podcast, sometimes when something seems hard, it probably is the right thing to lean into.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do recommendations or?
Yeah, I have a recommendation.
Okay. So let's do that.
Since you brought up the importance of feeling like we belong, it instantly made me think of my friend Mateo's podcast, Create Belonging. He is a very supportive listener of our podcast, and his is amazing. And I love listening to it, and I'm excited for new episodes to come out soon. And there's several in the catalog that people can go listen to. He has really interesting guests on. They talk about belonging and stuff that we're hitting on. So go check out Create Belonging wherever you get podcasts. How about you, Laura?
I'm going to recommend Braving the Wilderness by Brené Brown. A really good read, and helped to really dig into what it is we're looking for in community and how to step in and accept our true selves and navigate this world with courage and grace, and challenge my perspective a little bit about what it means to be brave this week.
All right. Should we get out of here?
I think so.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right.
That was really good. Segue. I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay.
But then we'll get into my story. Okay? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's the right thing to do. It's just I might stumble over how to say things, and I definitely don't want it to sound like I'm congratulating myself.
You're not, but here's the thing. I don't think that being brave or courageous is congratulating yourself necessarily. I don't think
They award bravery and courage.
No, but
that's what I'm
in
talking
this
about.
Context.
Right.
You don't award yourself bravery and courage.
Yes,
Other
yes,
people award it upon you, right?
Okay. But okay, we're circle talking.
Okay. Because I asked, was there a time you were vulnerable and had to have courage?
Yeah, being courageous and brave. But what feels weird
vulnerable and courageous.
So I was being vulnerable. So that, because me being courageous for talking to somebody about me being a fucking idiot is doesn't feel courageous. It feels like I was being brave, but like from my perspective, like from another perspective, it could be like, well, at least you did the bare minimum of being somewhat decent by saying something, So I'm trying to figure out how to talk about it without sounding like I'm patting myself on the back for doing the hard thing.